My name is Alan, and welcome to the Sound Speeds Podcast, Episode 4. Welcome to October, my favorite month of the year, and not because my birthday falls upon one of its 31 days, it does not, but because core to my being is a lot of things that deal with this particular month. The weather, for example, goes from 90 degrees here in the south to a nice cool 60 during the day. And that to me is awesome because it drives away the bugs. The bugs hate it. The trees suddenly say, oh, wait a second, it's time to start changing into the deep browns and oranges and yellows that you always see when you think of fall. All the trees here in the south start doing that if they don't stay green, which some trees do. And the ones that don't do either one lose their leaves altogether. And the fall temperature makes it a wonderful thing for the kids to go out there and play in the leaves. Or the bare bones trees by themselves look great with Halloween decorations all upon them. The month of Halloween, how can you not love going and listening to ghost stories, cuddled up with someone in not too freezing cold weather, but weather just enough to make cuddling up with hot spice cider a wonderful thing. It is Halloween month. You have your haunted houses. You have everything seasonally to look forward to. You have your paid vacation coming up. You have Halloween, trick-or-treating, Thanksgiving, Christmas. You have most of the months that pay you to actually stay at home and enjoy a time off with your family. Most of those are taking place in the last 3 months of the year. You have Thanksgiving. The day after Thanksgiving, you have Christmas, sometimes even the Christmas Eve you have off. And you also probably have New Year's Eve, if not New Year's Day, but then, of course, that is the next month, isn't it? But the last 3 months of the year are magical to me. So let's go ahead and enjoy it together with this episode of the Sound Speeds Podcast. And it is Saturday, October 5th, 2019. Let's get into it. Amazon impulse buys. I'm a boom operator, a very physical job. You would never know it from looking at me, but I'm actually quite agile because I have a martial arts background. But I'm always looking for any little things that you can do to strengthen some part of your body. Now, I may not look strong to you, and I'm not one of these muscle-bound guys that can say, oh yeah, let me press, 450 pounds over my head. I can't do all that stuff. But what I do have is stamina and endurance, believe it or not, and I have quite a bit of flexibility. Now, one of the ways that I keep that up is by doing a lot of hand exercise, stretches, shoulder, all these different activities that I'll have to go into in some sort of a video in the future. But one of the things I'm also looking for is little trinkets and gadgets that help you to gain strength or flexibility, mobility, something like that. And I found one, or I should say there was a guy at work that was constantly using this little device. And I said, that's really cool. I got to try it out. This is a Powerball and not like the lottery, although it does sound the same. This here is a little lightweight thing. This is what, 8, 10 ounces, something like that. But it's weighted on the inside and it works off a centripetal force so that if you were to get this thing to rotate, you simply rotate it in your hands and it starts to develop outwards tension. And the harder you grip it or the more you just start to twist it or whatever, it starts to build up strength in your wrist. I'll show you. This particular model has little arrows on it. And if you simply press it up with your thumbs, then once it gets up to, maybe a few revolutions, you simply grab it with your hand and release, and then it starts to slowly, well, this particular version lights up. But what it's doing right now is the centripetal force is starting to pull outwards on my wrist. So it's probably at about 15, 20, 25 pounds of outwards force. And if you try to hold it as still as possible, it is quite a workout. Now, it is creating power in the form of light. And at the same time, you're hearing this. Maybe not quite as strong as you're hearing my voice because it is off access to it. But this right here is developing a lot of strength in my wrist right now. Now, I could actually rotate my wrist more, or I can rotate it the other way, and it instantly will rotate around and spin around the other way. Depending on how you position your arm, your bicep in, out, inwards, outwards, twist it this way, twist it that way. However you choose to do it, there are a lot of different muscles that this particular Powerball will work. This is one of the coolest little finds that I've found recently. It is very quick, it's very easy, it doesn't take much time, and your wrist will actually get a pretty decent workout. There's a lot of websites that have exercises for the Powerball that you can find online, and I strongly recommend you getting a Powerball, checking it out, and getting to the actual, nitty gritty on how to use the thing. Go online, look up some of the Powerball exercises that you can do, and start using it because it's a very simple thing. It's kind of fun, and it's very easy. Something sound. This last Monday on Sound Speeds, I released a video that was putting to the test a whole bunch of different professional wind protection options for boom microphones. And amongst the questions I received via email and in the comments below were, how do you deal with heavy duty wind? Now, ever since I started Sound Speeds, people have been asking me very similar questions. And one of the questions I've received and decided to finally answer was, what has been the highest amount of wind I have been able to prevent from hitting my microphone? And that would be on Stranger Things season 2. I believe it's now a deleted scene, but it involved 11 and 8 in the out of the sunroof of a vehicle, and it's as after they were bonding. So spoiler alert: after they were bonding, they were in the sticking out the sunroof and just yelling and laughing. And it was at near sunset, so the sun was kind of low on the horizon, and they were just being silly girls, hair blowing all over the place, laughing, screaming, joking out the sunroof. Now, this was a free driving scene, meaning that the car was being driven by somebody, probably a stunts person or a safe driver, and the only people that were in that vehicle was the sound mixer, the director of photography, the first AD, and the director, and the actresses, of course. And I did not have the option of being there because it was such a small, intimate environment there. But what I did have to do as boom operator was find a way to get that audio. Now, there was no scripted dialogue, but the girls were laughing, joking, saying things, oh, look at this, and whatever. And we were told to be prepared for anything and everything they could say. Again, scenes were deleted, so I don't think that it even exists anymore. But what I was facing was when I asked, how fast are they going to be going? I was told they could be going up to maybe 70 miles an hour. Now, we owned the road. It was a closed off road on the south side of Atlanta, and it was a long straightaway, and they were going to be going back and forth, back and forth. And the sun was coming down on kind of a low angle, so they had to find a road, first of all, that was not going to be casting a shadow from the camera onto the actresses, and they positioned the angle correctly so that way they could do that with the camera. But I also had to position microphones in such a way where they would be able to get the ladies' dialogue, or their ad libs, I should say, without shadowing them as well. So obviously I could not be in line with the sun, and I could not be where the camera was, but I had to be somewhere close. And I was told to prepare for up to about 70 miles an hour. So what did I do? Well, one of the things that I know is that microphones, especially those that are more directional, like shotgun microphones, do have a rear lobe of sensitivity. So you have to treat for that. And obviously, something like a cardioid would be something to consider, but wind hitting the back of that microphone would still create a lot of noise on the microphone simply because there's no way to protect against 70 miles an hour of direct impact on a microphone. So I had to find a way to baffle that. I couldn't build a huge big baffle because not only would that shadow the actresses, but because at 70 miles an hour, that could easily break loose and maybe even hit them, hit the camera, something like that. You don't want to do that. It's unsafe. So what I ended up doing is figuring out that, and I played with circumstances like this in the past, and this was an opportunity for me to shine. What I did is I took one of our magic arms that locks down pretty well, and I put on that, the Zeppelin that we have with our CMIT, the CMIT 5U, the Shep CMIT 5U, and I had it pointed at the actresses because I knew it wasn't going to be that close. I knew it was going to be probably about 3 or 4 feet away, maybe about 3 feet. So it was about 3 feet away from the actresses, and because the camera was in front of them, the traffic was driving this way and camera was looking directly at them, I knew I had to protect against the back part of the the Zeppelin more so than the front, which was going to work to my advantage. Obviously, I used a Zeppelin, which was the modular ride coat, and I used the high wind cover, the HWC. And on the back of that HWC, on the back third of that, I taped with black paper tape all around that because I wanted it to resist the wind and kind of make a baffle, a little, I wanted it to withstand on the back and then kind of flow around the Zeppelin. But I did not want wind to travel through and hit the microphone, which would happen unless I used tape. On the outside of that, I put the Zeppelin fur that was going to help it from dissipate some of the direct impact as well. So between all of that, the microphone was basically being dragged backwards. So if the microphone was pointing towards you, it was being dragged backwards here. And by me taping off the back part of the Zeppelin and using the other 3 wind protection options, and I think we might have even used the foamy on the inside just to, it would be better to prepare for it and plan than not have it at all. So I think we used the foamy on the inside of the Zeppelin on the microphone. Then we used the high wind cover, which looks kind of like a sock that goes around the Zeppelin. And then we put, I put tape on the back, probably the back third of the Zeppelin. And so that way it was going to make an area that wind was not going to be able to penetrate. And then around that, I put the Zeppelin first. So between all of that, pointed straight, like a bullet directly towards the front of the vehicle, the wind was going to be hitting it, going right around the side, and not once did it destroy our sound. I talked to the mixer afterwards who was listening to it as he was recording, and he said it was great. Not one problem at all. No issues, with it, popping the microphone or anything like that. He says it sounded really good. So I was really pleased. But that is probably the most intense amount of wind I've ever had to protect for in any of my professional endeavors on set. Opinionated much? There's a lot of talk amongst crew and talent regarding what crafts should win Academy Awards and which ones should fall into other categories. Like, for example, there's not an Academy Award for best gaffer or best key grip. That's all part of kind of the lighting and camera world that is the look of the show as led by the director of photography. So the DP accepts the award for them. If there are directors, like co-directors, then both of them would obviously win an award. But their team of ADs and stuff are usually thanked by the directors. Now, in the same kind of way, there are some crafts that just do not win awards, like obviously craft services, video assist, catering, even script supervisory, because these are different crafts that fall into other categories, or they don't even have a place in the Academy Awards because people, on the red carpet would not care that you had a great craft services. I mean, we all care as crew members that, we have really good food on set, but no one else does. It's not something that conveys, the performance or conveys the emotion of the scene or something like that on film. So there's a big question going around about stunt players and what their position should be in the Academy Awards, because stunt players do play a very critical role in selling the realism of a scene. In last week's episode of the podcast, I talked about how CGI still is not real. It doesn't feel real, and even practical effects that people wear on their faces, even if it's a little on the cheesy side, it's going to sell because it looks real. It's based in reality. And in much the same kind of way, stunt actors, stunt players, they're SAG, first of all, SAG, Screen Actors Guild, SAG-AFTRA. And so because they are performers, they're going to have interactions probably sometimes with the actors on set. Like if there's going to be a big fight, one of the things that I kind of jokingly tell people is when I watch a movie that I know was shot in my town, if I'm like watching a bar sequence and I start to see stunt people I recognize, I'm like, oh, something's about to happen, because I recognize those faces and I've worked with them perhaps. And because of that, I know when something's about to happen. And I start watching for that. I'm like, oh, yeah, well, he's now talking to the actor. Something's about to happen. Somebody's going to, hit somebody over the head with a glass bottle or something. But stunt players are responsible for selling the look of a particular stunt. They basically, they being the actors, are doing the scene. And then as soon as there's something that could be life endangering or, that you need proper training in order to endure, they will step out and we will bring in an actual stunt player who will do the scene, fall or or jump off of a building or whatever the case may be, and the stunt people take that and run with it. But the realism aspect of that particular stunt falls upon a stunt player because they are the people that have gone through the training, they've rehearsed the stunt, and everything should be legit and look best as possible. And the reason I'm mentioning all this and kind of setting it up is because there's a lot of people online that believe that stunt people should have their own category in Academy Awards. Well, the Academy Awards, they've been cutting back on the amount of Academy Awards they've been given for a while. As a matter of fact, there's talks about combining the sound mixing and the post sound editing into one sound award. And there's different categories they're talking about combining, and a lot of us in the movie world are saying, no, don't do that. I mean, if anything, create more. But they say, no, we are actually kind of overboard. We've got so many of them. We need to rein it back in a little bit. So for that reason, stunt people have not been given their own category, and there's other reasons too. But a lot of people think that stunt people should have their own category in the Academy Awards. My opinion is that they shouldn't, and let me explain why before you go and attack me. A stunt person is playing the role of the actor, and because of that, I don't think the Academy Award for Best Actor should go to the one primary person on that movie poster that's credited very, very high in the credit sequence. I think that the award for Best Actor or Actress, Supporting Actor or Actress or whatever else should be given to the character they are performing. So it is the role of this particular character that is winning the award. And that performance should be shared between the actor or actress that does the emotion part and the actor or actress stunt player that makes them look good when they do a fall or a big, huge, death-defying stunt. That, to me, is my opinion. Because you should, obviously, you could very easily argue and say, well, what if the actor is there for the entire movie that's shot over 6 months and the stunt person only comes in to do one particular stunt, or they're riding a bike and then they jump it on a 2-foot ramp or whatever. The stunt person deserves their own Academy Award for that and sharing that. If that stunt person was doing a stunt and performing that character in a particular aspect of that role, then yes. If an actor or actress is not capable of performing a part of that character, then it should fall on the person that shares that role with them. Now, I'm not suggesting that actors start suddenly doing all of their own stunts in order to prevent a stunt person from getting that Academy Award shared with them. I don't think that at all. Obviously, the public is going to know that particular actor is top billed. That actor is going to be the one that won the Academy Award for that particular role. And that's going to be the person they're talking about. But regarding the actual awards themselves, I believe that the stunt person that portrays that actor in the scenes that are critical to their performance in the movie. Like, for example, look at the movie True Lies. Arnold Schwarzenegger plays a top elite type cop who he does some pretty awesome things. At one point, he's on a horse and he's riding the horse around and he's performing from that horse. Now, if that particular stunt, or if the stunt sequences on that horse were done by a stunt person, then everything that guy did is making Arnold look good in that role of, what was his name? John Quaid? No, that was a different movie. I forgot his character name. But everything that stunt player did makes Arnold look good. Now, I'm not saying that let's say that there's 15 different stunt people that do different stunts throughout the movie. It should be one person that plays the role for that particular actor or actress. And I think that's normally what happens on sets anyway, unless there's a specialty that has to happen. But whoever the primary stunt person is, I believe, should share the award with the actor. Now, obviously, just like with the movie, they're not going to get top billed and billed alongside with them as this person and this stunt person as whatever else. No, by all means, still give that to just the actor. But as for the Academy Award, give that to also not just the actor or actress that did the emotion part and the talking and the action of the movie, but give it to the person that risked their life and limb to make that character look good on celluloid. Or I guess I should say now, in the world of digital or in cinema itself. Wrong answers only. There's a lot of people out there that give hate to USB microphones. And so for this episode, I thought I would explain why USB microphones get a bum rap and why they should be considered for anyone and everyone over any other kind of microphone out there, simply because they are that awesome. Now, let's start at the bare bones aspect of it. If you were to talk about the old days of cinema, there is the production side that creates a movie. Then there's the distribution side that distributes it from where it was produced to all the different theaters. Then there's the part that shows it, the movie houses. It is illegal. It's considered to be a monopoly to own all three of those aspects. So Warner Brothers cannot shoot a movie, distribute it, and show it in Warner Brothers theaters. That's not allowed. It is all that's considered, I believe, horizontal integration, I believe is what it's called. And you also, maybe it was vertical, I can't remember. But the other aspect of it would be owning all of the movie houses or owning all the production companies or all the distribution aspects of it. So you cannot own all aspects of the filmmaking world because it's considered to be a monopoly. But the reason I'm mentioning that is because it falls very much in line with where I'm going with this. How many times have you heard back in the day, oh, you want to match your components? When you get a Sennheiser amplifier, get Sennheiser speakers, and get a Sennheiser CD player because all of those components work together to make the very best possible sound. The same kind of thing falls in line with when you buy a USB microphone and why it is so amazing. Because it is a one-stop shop. It is the monopoly. It owns all aspects of the sound with exception of recording, I guess I should say. That's handled by the computer. But you have the microphone itself. You have the analog to digital converter, and then everything is inside the microphone. Then from there, it goes out one little cable directly digitally into your computer, and all you do is press record in Audacity or whatever your DAW is, or in any audio program you want. You simply hit record. That to me is awesome. And the reason why I believe that is because it is obviously matching components by the same manufacturer that are designed to go well together. So you have a good sounding microphone, then you have a great converter, and they can cut out the need for having cables to connect between those two by having it all integrated right there. You also will have a boom arm, you might have a stand, whatever the case may be. It is engineered to be what it is, the way that it sounds, for whatever the design is in the microphone. So for example, the Blue Yeti has a little, a little stand that it stands off, and the microphone will stand up off of this. Well, it is designed for you to put on a table in front and to be at the right height for you. And because it is multipolar pattern, you can do whatever you want to with it, and it's going to sound wonderful. Now, the thing that is also that you should consider also is that you can get whatever cable you want to go out of that. It does not matter as much. Like in the world of XLR, you have to have a very premium microphone cable to make it sound good, but not so much in the world of USB. You could have a cheap USB cable because all it's doing is moving zeros and ones from the microphone to your computer, and you're not going to be going over a whole bunch of interference and stuff, not like XLRs, that XLR cables, for example, it's going to leave here. It's going to perhaps go right next to a bunch of power components on your computer or whatever, and then finally work its way into your recorder or your computer or whatever. And by then you have all this interference into it. In the world of digital USB microphones, it is simply one little cable that comes out of the back of the microphone itself, and it is zeros and ones, and it goes directly into your computer. And it's not going to be affected as much by any kind of RF. If you run it right over a power cord, that power cord is not going to be affecting it because it's zeros and ones. You cannot affect it at all. It does not work that way. But by having a USB microphone that is all completely integrated in there, it's going to sound as good as possible when you speak into that microphone, and the capsule itself picks up your voice. It converts it digitally with no noise gain or anything like that, and then goes directly into your computer. It is as clean as that signal could ever possibly be, because you're not leaving the microphone, going out analog into something else and then converting it. You don't have to worry about any of that stuff. It's all a one-stop shop that handles it, and it's digital when it leaves the microphone. Now, they use premium components in most USB microphones, and they get it down to a very, very low price as well. So you don't need to worry about upgrading this component here, upgrading this component there. It's not, you don't have to worry about any of that. It's all integrated in there and it handles it all. If the microphone goes bad, eventually, chances are it's going to be under warranty if it's within the first year or so anyway. And that would be under most defects that you would run into on any particular microphone if you're in a studio, because it's not going to run into very much else, right? There's not a whole lot of danger that's really going to affect that microphone. But if that microphone does go bad after 4 or 5 years or whatever, replace it with another of the exact same thing that exists out there. And because it has all the same matching components, your sound is going to sound the exact same. It's not like a USB, it's not like an XLR setup where if your house were struck by lightning and your microphone could have a plus or minus 2 dB deviation and then go into your USB audio interface, which could also have a plus or minus 2 dB variation as well. And everything could be as much as 4 dB off, plus or minus. So your sound on the low end could be very bassy, and on the high end, it could be lack a whole lot of the treble frequencies and the highs, or it could be the exact opposite. But because you are basically having plus or minus 2 degree of variance between the USB audio interface and the microphone, there could be all kinds of problems that arrive in that are introduced at that point, versus a USB microphone that you simply talk into and it's plus or minus 2, and it doesn't go out into another audio component. It goes directly into your computer. So USB microphones get a bum rap, but they're also the most cost-efficient microphone you can get. It's simple. Anyone can do it. It's one cable that goes out. You leave it to the engineers that know what they're doing to match components and to make that thing sound good, and then it goes straight out of that into your computer. So take that wisdom, because it is really, really important for you to have great sound, and a USB microphone is going to be the best way for you to get there. Story time. In the mid-1990s, I had long blonde hair down to the middle of my back, and because it was the same length all the way around, it went down to my stomach in the front, and it was very curly, and it would naturally wave a little bit and then go to ringlets at the end, so the girls loved it. But the reason I'm mentioning that is because I'm kind of setting up my look, which was black jeans, black boots, black shirt, black jean jacket, black cutoff finger gloves, and a black hat turned around backwards. That was just my style that I established probably back in 1991. Now, by the time I was driving in the mid-90s, I was probably going to one of my friends' houses when this story took place. I had 2 boxes of Hot Tamales candy, which are those little cinnamon, little oval-shaped disc things that, you can eat, and they're soft, chewable cinnamon candy. I really like those. And when I got down to the last like 2 or 3 of them, I was sitting at a traffic light and just kind of looking at it. It's like, wow, look at this little thing. Those are actually pretty cool. They have like a glisten on it, because the sun was kind of low and it was kind of kicking, straight up into my eyes, but I was wearing sunglasses at the time. So I was just kind of looking at my hot tamales. I was like, wow, that's pretty cool. Tossed the thing in my mouth, and I decided that since this is the last hot tamale, I might as well suck on the thing and get all the juices and really just enjoy it as long as I can. So I took the box, kind of jammed it in my seat, so that way if I slammed on the brakes, because I have a lead foot, I didn't want the box to fall on the floor. And sitting at the traffic light, just kind of glancing around, and there's like a car over there, a person walking around, a cop looking at me next to me, and nothing really, stands out to me. Light turns green, I accelerate. That cop flips on his lights, pulls me over, yanking, pulling up right behind me, and gets out, walks around, and I'm like, okay, I don't know what that's about. Maybe he just, looked at me and saw all the black and the long hair and said, well, I'm going to profile you. Because that was something that happened back in the 90s. And, here I am, this kid, not really thinking anything of it. And I open up the, window, and he says, I would like you to get out of the car. I'm like, okay. I mean, he was actually fairly polite about that. Get out of the car. I'd like you to get out of the car, and I'm going to put you in the back of my car. I'm like, okay. Thought nothing of that. He takes me back there, doesn't cuff me or anything, but as he puts me in the back of the car, he says, I'm going to search your vehicle. I'm like, okay, all right, whatever. I've never drank, I've never smoked, never done drugs. And I was just like, okay, well, whatever. I don't know why you're doing this, but okay. He starts in the trunk and starts, lift up the trunk. He looks all around. He looks underneath where the spare tire is. He looks inside where you would access to get in where the light bulbs are. They come in the back. He's, drops the seat. He feels all over the place. He's looking all over. He goes and puts the seat back up, comes in because I drove a hatchback. He comes in the passenger side door, flips the seat up, starts looking all over the place in the back seat and everything. Then finally he flips the passenger side seat up, kind of starts to look around. Then he sees the box of hot tamales, and I see him look at it. He kind of sniffs it, looks around on the inside. Then he walks over to the back of the car where I was and says, "Was this what you were eating back there is this what you put in your mouth when you were back at that traffic light?" I'm like, "Yeah, why?" At that point, he just kind of looks, rolls his eyes, shakes his head, and said that he thought he had something. He thought he saw me popping a pill. So he pulled me over thinking that I was, like, I guess, doing LSD. I know nothing about drugs. So I guess he thought I was doing some drug, popping it in my mouth. And because I was sucking on it, I guess it was dissolving on my tongue or something like that. I think I understand that there's a way that drugs do that. But he pulled me over and started at the back of the vehicle and worked his way forward, thinking that I was somehow having drugs on me when, I mean, like I said, he was very polite about it. I mean, he pulled me over and was just like, "I would like you to get out of the car." And I got out, and then he put me straight in his car. Didn't handcuff me or anything, didn't explain anything. He just told me what he was going to do, and he did it. And I was just like, okay, whatever. And the whole time, what's funny is I was sucking on the hot tamale and just thought nothing of it. I mean, he didn't even ask to check my mouth or anything. I was just like, okay. So kind of funny little story there, being pulled over, and the police officer thought he was going to have a drug bust, but really I was just eating candy. Floating segment, questions answered. John S. asks, "You're about to get into a fight. What song comes on as your soundtrack?" Well, if you were to ask me this back when I was a full-time martial arts instructor and so very well embedded at the end of my 20 years of martial arts training, very much deep into martial arts. My reaction time was top notch. I was in great shape. I'm still flexible. I can still do the splits and everything, but you would never know that to look at me, would you? But back then, I probably would say anything that sounded pretty awesome, some metal song by, Motley Crue or Kiss or something like that. But looking at it now, I think that personally, any of the songs that happen when the Cobra Kai guys are out on their motorcycles just causing trouble and bullying up on Daniel, I think any of those songs would probably be good. As would "You're the Best Around" that they played at the tournament when Daniel first is in the tournament, and you've seen the Cobra Kai guys fighting everybody and Daniel fighting his way up too. That to me is a really, really awesome, song that just kind of just kind of embeds itself deep into me, because Karate Kid is one of those movies that is very close to me and very much part of who I am and my past. It's one of like my 5 core movies that really just speak to me very loudly. Now I'm out of practice. I haven't done martial arts in a class environment for probably 13 years, as sad as that is. I think it was back in 2006 when I was last part of any kind of a class, and that was when I was in the UK. I had gone there when I got married, and I was a martial arts instructor at the time. And so I found a school that I could go to and work out at. And the people were very nice and very accepting. And I went to any and all classes I wanted to. And they said, "You're a guest instructor from, America. That's great. If you won't mind, our payment would be if you were to teach, some of your techniques to our class." I said, "Absolutely. I'm all about sharing information, as you guys know." I went back 2 years later and did the exact same thing. And that was the last time I was really in part of any kind of a martial arts class. I really miss it, but then my schedule is so crazy now. Father of 3, married, life gets in the way really quickly. And I work very long hours. And of course, I do sound speed. So there's a lot on my plate. Now, though, if I were to think about what one song I would probably enjoy most coming on, let's pretend for a second that I was just going to dominate in this fight. The song that I can imagine playing as, like, the song that I kick butt at would be probably Skrillex's First of the Year. If you've ever seen the music video, it has a high creep out factor if you first watch it. It is, for the first minute or so, pretty intense. But stay with it because the message and the payoff is really awesome. I'm not going to spoil it for you, but I put a link down in the description if you'd like to check it out. It is an awesome music video, and it's a very strong sounding, just brutal whatever, and probably what happens in the music video also is part of the reason why I think it would be really, really an awesome song to fight to. So there you have it. Soundspeed's Podcast, Episode 4, in the can. Now, if you've been looking at the SM7B microphone in front of me and wondering why I'm not using the windscreen that comes with it, I mean, geez, it's been sitting here right next to me. I could have easily put that on there. The reason why is because if you can get away with not using a windscreen on a microphone, it is so much better. The fidelity of it does go up. Believe it or not, even on an SM7B, the highs sound crisper if you don't use that wind protection on there. And so I decided to give it a test in this particular podcast to see how it would turn out. I'm curious. Now, I do know I popped the microphone a few times in this episode. I have heard that. But then my question would be, did I pop it more or less than I would otherwise? I mean, if I had this on there the whole entire time, would I have still popped the microphone? Probably not as bad, but I probably would have popped it at least a few times. So it's something that when I get into post and I really start, examining the audio here, I'm going to think about it and whether or not I want to use it in the future. But thanks for tuning into this episode of the Soundspeeds podcast. And I didn't receive any submissions this last week for the outro. So if you'd like to submit your own voice and do the voiceover for my outro, then by all means, please do. So it's back to my voice. But thank you for tuning in, and I will see you again next week. If you'd like to ask a question for the Wrong Answers Only segment or submit a suggestion for the floating segment, then send an email to soundspeedspodcast@yahoo.com. If you'd like to showcase your voiceover talents by saying this outro, make sure it sounds good, doesn't exceed 20 seconds, and send it to the same email. Hit subscribe for more content both here and on Soundspeeds.